everybody. Welcome out to the Dice Tower. My name is Chris Yee.
I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Joey Evans.
Are you sure about that?
I am.
I'm glad you're confident.
That's why.
Today we're taking a look at this game called Rotten Tomatoes, the card game, which when I saw this sitting on the shelf, I had a very visceral reaction to it.
Yes.
Well, I assumed that I would be like they give themselves, ratings. This would be a 52%.
Yeah.
Rating.
Lower.
See, it's this box, it's this graphic design that, Cards Against Humanity, those type of games have done that I steer away from, basically.
Do you use Rotten Tomatoes? Because I do.
I do.
A lot.
I do.
Yeah, I was intrigued. Oh man, please be good. Then I saw on the back that this is it seems based off of a game called Timeline,
Right.
actually.
Yep.
Game that I think all of us really enjoy.
Yep.
So I'm going to show you how it plays, and then we'll give you our thoughts on it. Here's Rotten Tomatoes, the card game set up on the table. Each player has 3 movie cards in front of them with a lot of information, the name of the movie, the year released, actors, scores, and a little blurb about the film. You arrange these ones in ascending order by the tomato meter or the critical score of it, and you're trying to get 10 cards in front of you. How do you add more cards? On your turn, someone will read the name of a film, and you have to guess where the critical reception falls between out of the cards in front of you. So someone flips over, and this one is You've Got Mail. Well, do I think that You've Got Mail is better than The Big Short? Between Paul Blart Mall Cop and The Big Short, between Flubber and Paul Blart, or down at the bottom here, do I think it has worse of a score than Flubber? Well, I would guess this one here. If I reveal it to be correct, I keep it in front of me, and that will be my turn. The next player comes over here. You flip over another movie. Let's see what this one is. This one is Baywatch. I assume that Baywatch was not very well received, so I'm going to guess here. Look at that. I was wrong. If you are wrong, you just simply do not keep the card, and that is your turn. And that one is set to the side. Players just keep going in turn order until someone has 10 cards in front of them. Now, there are a few special cards that you will reveal. Sometimes it was just shuffled into the deck. At some point, you will reveal one of these cards. A wild card that has you guess something. So in this case, it has you guess the audience score. The rules as written says whoever draws this will take a look at the card here, the Karate Kid, and say, okay, the Karate Kid, the 2010 version with Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan. We're going to go around and everyone has to guess a number for the audience score, and whoever is correct or closest to it will win this card. So this player over here guessed it, and so it's going to fit here. And you still arrange it by tomato meter, not the audience score. Or you might reveal one that says the title. I'm going to read the description of the movie, and you have to guess what the title is. This one here says, a teenager from a Chicago town, so in Chicago moves to a small Midwestern town where rock and roll is forbidden and dancing is against the law. Well, that's clearly Footloose, the greatest movie ever made. Wild card, guess by the year of release. You grab a movie title, Snakes on a Plane. What year was that released? People go around and guess until you're correct. Cast members, read the name of the movie. You have to guess who the two the actors here are on the card, or go around and guess by the tomato meter. And there you go. That's pretty much all the rules to Rotten Tomatoes, the card game. One other little note here, this is the entire rule sheet over here, which says, by the way, if you run out of movie cards to draw, the game ends and whoever has the most cards is the winner. There are this many cards in the game, so if you run out of these, go ahead, stop playing, and go watch a movie. So as I mentioned before, this is very, very similar to Timeline.
I'm tired.
Joey, you've played Timeline before.
I have played Timeline, and I like Timeline, like Card Line, the dinosaurs, and all that stuff. And I like them, and they're great. But of course, they have the same problem where you can only play them once or twice. But this is a very interesting way to do it. I love that concept to be able to get rid of your cards, and as the game progresses, it gets harder and harder as the gaps fill up.
Yeah, I think that's good. And one small difference is you're building up your own little lineup of movies, and so if you're doing better, it's kind of self-balancing.
It's kind of funny because comparing this to Timeline, in Timeline you're doing dates usually.
Right.
And if you'll say, when did this come out? 15/17. You turn over, oh, it's 16/12. I'm like, well, that's correct. In this, they'll say, what is this movie? And I'm like, well, that's obviously, I'm assuming it's 37%. We turn over and they'll say 70. I'm like, well, that's technically correct, I guess, if you go to Rotten Tomatoes, but it's clearly wrong. It's a weird thing, right? Because it's correct information. I'm sitting here thinking subjectively wrong.
But it's interesting the fact that Timeline, it's like the smarter people always beat me. I think there's a switch when you go to something like this.
Oh, pop culture. Good, Joey's involved now.
I'm like, okay, because all of a sudden you've got in one line you are comparing Citizen Kane to like Human Centipede, and it's like they both show up.
I'm so sad that sentence was just said.
But it's like, and then I love like the wow factor, because you get that in timeline occasionally when you're like, oh wow, toothpaste was invented here. It happens occasionally and it's fun. But here you're like, either the movie was ranked far too low or far too high, which is usually the case.
That being said, one of the weaknesses of the game is a lot of movies fall into a much more narrow percentage.
Right.
Yeah.
Because very few movies have everyone love them or have everyone hate them. There's more lower percentages than highers, but like getting above 90 is a tough gig.
It is.
And there's a lot of the same exact percentages in here.
There's a lot of cards, which is good for variety and everything. I'm not going to exactly remember, even though there's fewer numbers than there are years in history.
Yeah.
There's just a ton of cards in that box, right? But yeah, I have multiple times have been like, oh my gosh, where do I put this? Ooh, I'm really debating. You know, I have a range of like 60 to 68%. I'm like, please be in there. You flip it over, it's 68%. It would have been correct either on the left or the right of that card. You're like, sweet! Good for me, I guess.
Yeah. And I agree. And I like how it switches sometimes where you can actually, instead of giving the critics review, you're giving the user review. You know, I do like that because that's a big swing, honestly.
Well, I was going to bring that up. I think you could just play a whole game that way. I would like to do that and just say, hey, we're going to play user reviews today instead of critic reviews.
Right.
I think it's odd that, yeah, the rule book, the rule sheet of paper that's not even folded, that simple of a game, which I think is great, doesn't ever say, if you want to play with the other number on the card, you can do that.
Right.
People are inevitably going to do that. I think people are going to play this by the year the movie was released. I think people are going to do those different things. I like the wild cards that come out, but I think they have a little bit of problem to them. I don't know if you guys feel the same way about that.
Well, there's one. Okay, so like I said, these cards are objectively correct in the sense of this is what the scores are. Where they're not objectively correct is when they're like, here's the two main actors. I often think they just randomly pick two people from the movie.
Yeah, and I think they do.
Like, it'll be a love story, and there's the two main love people, and one of them's in there, and then the other's like his best friend. I'm like, those aren't the two main actors.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
that's odd.
Although
I like
in
the wild cards, but I could use less of them.
Although, if the card Hitch came up and I had to guess the actors, it wouldn't be the love interest. It'd be Will Smith and Kevin James, right?
That's true.
Right.
But there's a lot of these I looked at, and I was like, that's the person you picked? It felt like some guy was just like, pick two people from the movie.
I agree.
I agree with that too.
I think the fact that the wild cards come up just kind of randomly, you might have a whole game where you have none of them because it's a big deck of cards. Or like the first time we played, we hit 8 wild cards in a row, and we're like, oh, okay. Tom, at some point we're playing timeline, but right now we're just playing guessing game.
Right.
But I do like the wild. What I would do, this is such a house rulable game. I would just do one of those, after every 2 guesses, or after everyone's had a turn.
And now we play a wild card, yeah.
Yeah, I think as
I
a
agree.
game, it could have been a little bit better crafted.
I can't believe you used Hitch as an example there. Sorry.
I know, that was, I forgot about that one.
It's a throwback.
It is.
It's a slapback. I think my favorite part of this game overall, though, is the game is fun. It's well made. It is a lot better than I expected.
Same here.
But then sitting around afterwards and then talking about the movies in front of you. That's the best.
It's almost like a conversation starter, like a certain movie came out and we'd all seen it and we realized it got a 0% from the critics. And it was like, whew, it's hard to get. But it's like, but most people at the table had seen that movie. It's pretty funny, It's like that shared experience, which kind of creates. That's what I do like too.
We talked about Problem Child 2 the other day.
True. That's why that came up.
That was a 0%.
Spoiler
alert. I was like, whew. That was a rough one.
Yeah, so I think that's the best thing. It's a conversation driving game without being a, hello, this is a conversation driving game. Flip over a card, talk about your feelings about this thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that.
I really hate those, but this one has that. This one draws that out of a crowd, I think.
I agree. Yeah. I like it.
Final scores? Shall we move to that?
What do you got?
You're going to move really high on this, aren't you? All right, I'm actually going to I'm at a 7 on this. because I do enjoy it a lot. You know, with the right group of people, it's going to be fun to hit. I think I don't know if it has the staying power of Timeline, but I think it's more isolated in the people that you're going to play it with. But I do enjoy it a lot because there's a lot of movies in here, a lot of things that I want to see. And I like to see it. It starts conversations. It's a fun end of the night game for me.
It's also a 7 for me.
7? Nice.
Because there are some problems that I think the game's not as smooth as it could be. But you're right. I'm telling you, I love Timeline and I play Timeline a lot. But if I bring Timeline or this to the table, people would rather play this. Most people.
Yeah, I agree.
I think so.
That's just the way it is. People like to talk about movies. Even if you haven't seen a movie, you'll be like, I think that movie was pretty critically acclaimed. Oh, 56%. I was wrong.
Yes.
And again, it's a movie that you can sit around. It's a little too big to carry in your pocket to the restaurant, but it almost could be played like in a setting like that.
Grab a handful of cards.
Yeah. If you stick it in your purse and bring it, okay.
Yeah.
But then it wouldn't take up that much space on the table. And I think people would get a kick out of it.
Yep.
I think so. I think I'm giving this one a 7.5 because I think I like it the most, but it's not a great game objectively, so to speak. I think that there are some definite issues, but I've house ruled them out, right? The Chris Yee variant is like an 8.5.
Here's the thing, though. I think that I'm normally against if you have to house rule a game, it shouldn't be okay. But I think people will just naturally do it.
I think so, right? Like for example, if on your turn you draw one of the random cards, you're supposed to read the card and everybody else guesses. I don't understand why you're out of it that round. You just cover up.
Right.
You just reveal a card slowly, say the name of the movie, and then you also get to guess in it. Stuff like that. Like my variation gets a higher score. Out of the box is 7.5, and I agree with you, Tom. I think people will just start playing this how they want to play it, and will have a ton of fun with it.
I agree. Yep, I'm with you.
All right, so there you go. That's our thoughts on Rotten Tomato, the card game. Higher
That's
than
a
I expected.
72.5% rating from the Dice Tower.
Yeah, and that's the viewers, the critics.
Fresh! You're running this.
Oh, I am?
Yeah.
All right.
Can I hold it?
Nope, I'm in the middle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome out to the Dice Tower.